Okay, right. Hi, Bella. Let me pull up our questions.
Hi again.
All right, so just quickly, just tell us a bit about you. So, telling us about you, just your name, where you're from, your favorite food, your favorite color, um, your career journey.
Right. So my name is Bukola Bella Kefosile. Right. Yeah. So I'm an LES practitioner and I've been an LES practitioner for a decade now. Unbelievable.
Wow,
Yes, it's a decade now.
the
Don't think I
decade
remember. Yes. 10.
10.
Yeah. Like wow. And I didn't set out to be an LES practitioner. I studied sciences, for my first degree, and I loved it when I did it. But then I did like what's it called, graduate training program and Meadow Hall, and I got stuck, and I've been there since. And honestly, I really do love this job. I love working with children. Thankfully, I am naturally patient, so that works. And honestly, I just do love to work with children and see their growth and their improvement. And even though there are so many challenges in this field, I still haven't gotten to that point where I'm like, I want to leave because I keep
Like,
thinking
I'm
about the
done.
children. Yeah, like I do want to keep working with children long term. Even if I ever transition out of working with them directly, I do want to keep working with them. So yeah,
Mm,
that's basically me in the wrap. I definitely do love working with children. I'm an introvert, so I don't do much outside work.
like
I
me.
read I read books. I read loads of books. I read
Yes.
about 200 and I do want to read that record this year.
Ooh, okay, that's where you're better than me because I struggle. Maybe because of the war, I just struggle with reading now. I'm trying to get back, at least. Let me even do one book a month and see where that takes me. And 10 years, 10 years. My I'll be 11 years this year. Or I'm 11 years this year. And I'm like, already, how time
Yeah,
flies.
seriously. Like I just
Yeah.
remember this was like 10 years. It don't seem to go back very quickly because I would never have thought it was 10 years. I know it was 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Now.
remember when you were saying 8 years. I think I remember when we were having a conversation and you're like 8 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, very soon. I just remember my first day as an educator. Like the same thing too. It was NYSC. I just stepped into that classroom and it just felt like, oh, I belong here. Like I just belong here. And that was it. And it's so beautiful working with children, getting to see them blossom, be the better version of themselves. And every time I try to transition, maybe if I think of doing something else, I always just come back to this because I'm like, I'm not good for anything else. I'm just good for
No,
teaching.
honestly, I absolutely love working with children.
Yeah,
Even though there are the challenges and all that, but there's just what I love most about is that there's always something to learn. There is
there's
always
always
something to learn.
something to learn.
Learn. I'm like in the new learning phase now because I've just transitioned into a toddler room. I've never worked with toddlers before. And this is like the first time I think it's about a month now that I moved into the toddler room. So
Oh,
I'm having to learn a lot
how is it
over and over
going?
again. And I don't
How is it going?
it's going well, better than I ever thought it would go. Because when I was told I was going to move, I literally was shaking. And the manager was like, "Oh, don't worry, we're here to support you. If you don't like it after a month, just let us know." And all that. But I just felt like I don't want to move. I've been in preschool for the last 1 year, and
Mm,
I know what to do. And I feel very confident in preschool. I did feel like that when I went to preschool. There was no reception, so I had to take what I could get
mm-hmm.
back then. They're not like reception children, the preschoolers, but I felt like toddlers are like babies. They're like
Baby.
grown babies, but they're babies. And I felt like, oh God, never had to do this before. I don't know what to do. And the first few weeks, I was just like a fish out of water, like it was uncharted territory. And I'm like, oh, what do I do? I was just standing by and looking. And I felt very incompetent because I'm like, I don't know what to do
Yeah, I
in this
can.
room.
Mm,
And now it's just, I'm enjoying it so much. So much that they
really.
move me again.
Lots of singing, lots of dancing. They're actually very cute. They're cute. Aside the back pain, though, they are very amazing to work with. I think if I could go back to the classroom again, I'll do toddler class again. They're so much fun to work with. So much fun to work with.
Yeah, I do
Okay.
miss teaching, as in reception, the proper teaching,
Mm,
maths and phonics and science and all that.
yeah.
I really miss it, but I don't have to teach it. I struggled with it though when I started working with preschool
I
like that.
know,
I'd
right?
always find a way to like teach them during group time, but it just never worked. And I'm like, I think I have phased out of that now,
Mm.
not where I can confidently interact with children without needing to, maybe
To-
teach them in a structured manner. If it comes up,
yeah.
fine, table moment, yeah, talk about it. But otherwise, just play and pretend and, just let them experience and explore and see how they're learning by themselves and
Mm.
support them. Otherwise, just enjoy yourself, which is what I'm doing right now.
Okay, so that will bring me to the question. So what have your observations been
I
comparing that?
think if I have to start from reception, which is where I've spent most of my career, I haven't exactly steps here, but I did a lot of school visits last year. So there's something
Okay.
you can just go into schools for a day or two, observe how they're teaching. You can go and volunteer. So I did that with a couple of schools last year,
Okay.
and I basically went into a lot of reception rooms, and they do teach them. They do phonics, they do maths, but the target and the level of expectations is not the same.
Okay.
So the way the toddlers back home, the way they start to learn is the way the preschoolers here are learning. I mean, the
Right.
reception children here are learning. So I remember the first reception phonics lesson I observed. I was like, "What is this?" I was there like, "What are you people doing? This is like, you know, what's
Watered
that
down.
other room called back in Meadow? That's we had discovered explorers. That's what I was thinking that like this is explorers first level, and I think I was like observing them maybe like a third term, and the children were going into year one, and I'm like, oh, what is this? And the same thing, I know we observed year one children and year two children, and it was just so watered down. I mean, they were basically still learning the first five keywords. We have like this, we had this document we used to use that had like 200, 300.
Yeah. I
Like,
remember.
goodness, year two, like I discovered student would have been reading like the entire 300 by now. So it's like so watered down. The expectations are very, very different,
Okay.
and that's where it comes with perception. For preschool, it's the same thing. I've got like, I know this is like an official document, so I'll try to fold out the name of the setting and see if you can see. So this is basically a checkpoints document. I don't know if you can see.
Okay, yeah.
You, yeah, it's like targets for the children compared to the targets that we had back
That we have
home
back
for.
home.
Yeah, you see the document for like
Oh, I
preschoolers back
remember.
home is
I
like,
think I have some of them. Remember, they always printed them for us.
yeah. So they have like so many targets. But here, the targets there are very few. It's just now after the government reviewed the EYFS document that they've moved the expectations for numbers to 20. It used to be just like, counts numbers 1 to 10, not even
Yeah, it was
recognizing
10.
them.
Mm.
It's just the counting. But you know how far we go back home where we like they have to know the operations within, they have to be able to count,
Yeah.
identify, curriculums of one-to-one correspondence and all that. It is not a thing here. It is not an expectation here. Can they
Mm.
count it? Yeah. Do we have to teach them to count it? No, they don't even teach them to count it. They just expose them to it. So during cycle time every day, we're singing number songs, we're singing rhymes, we're counting, up to 10. We are, trying to figure out what day it is. If the number of the day is 20, we are counting to 20. But we're not trying to ensure that every child is meeting that target. So
Mm.
not like, oh, 20, but that child cannot count to 20. You'll sit down intervention. It is not it. If ever there is a need for them, and that is when they're getting closer to moving into big school, like we call it, when they're going to reception, then we can start to, maybe focus a little bit more on that child and maybe play games and just do some activities that would help them better grasp it. But it is not a do or die affair. Back
Mm.
home, it is a do or die affair.
Yeah, it
The
is.
school is going to you, your year group coordinator is going to be on you, the year group is going to be on you, everybody, the parents,
Everybody will be on you. Yeah.
everybody will be on you. And also here, no one sends assignments, like nobody sends assignments. So
Do you have room in
no
your
one.
house? Maybe I need to come live with you because
No one, literally no one. It's just what we've done in the day. Oh yeah, we've done this today. And the parents just want to know that the children are happy and safe. Honestly, that's what the parents want to know.
mm,
So how have they been today? Oh, they've been playing today, or they've been poorly today, or they've been this today and that. No one's asking that. Oh, so I'm very worried. You cannot count to 10. In the house, you cannot identify shapes or numbers. They're not asking. They're not. They just want to know their children are
Are
safe,
safe.
and that is it for them.
Okay,
You
so
know,
I would like to ask now. So would you, if you compare now, would you say, because I can imagine how much of a struggle that would have been for you. Like you said, you're like, what are you people doing here and all that. But
honestly, it
would
was such
you,
a
would
struggle.
you, yeah, so looking at the output now, let's look at the output here, there.
I do think there are advantages and disadvantages to both,
Okay.
right? Because again, you have to think of the environment. Back
Okay.
home, I don't think our children really feel like they're in danger because that is their environment. Maybe if they come here or if the children here go to Nigeria and probably be in a classroom that has that level of target and pressure, they will start to feel like they're in danger and they might start to affect them. But
Mm,
because they're like Nigerian children are born in that environment and raised in that environment and sort of are accustomed to the expectations, I don't think it affects them as such, except for the send children who we have like, interventions for, they don't have a breathing room. And honestly, I used to
yeah.
but oh my god, this really suffered. It was just too much on them because I know I've had interventions with some children and I'm like 7:30 in the morning interventions, after break interventions. No, your other children are playing, are screaming outside. Sit down, let's quickly do this. And it was such a good thing there because I wanted to be able to tell their parents that, oh, look at how far we've come. I wanted, to be able to tell the head of school if they asked me like, oh yeah, this is how far we've come. This is how much we are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I must have been suffering and would not have been able to vocalize what they were going through. So
Yeah.
for that aspect, I'd say with the curriculum back in Nigeria and the pressure, I think it's sort of an advantage, because when they come here, they are really strong. If they ever come here, they are really strong and they've got like way ahead of their peers and they're able to do certain things. And I'm quite biased towards literacy because
Oh,
I'm a
yeah.
reader and I do like it when children are able to read. So I think that focus that was placed on reading, and I'm really talking about MH here because the other school I worked on, they really did not care about it as such. They didn't care about
Yeah.
it. It was a bit different as well if I have to compare those two schools. But with MH, I did appreciate that focus on reading. But when it comes to any other aspect of learning, like maths, like there was no need for it, honestly speaking,
Mm.
because you have to think about the future ramification of these things. Okay, they are learning these things now, but is it applicable in the next 2 years? What's the application in the next 3 years? What do they need it for? If
Mm.
it was 200 in toddlers, they are still going to do the same thing in year six for the love of
True.
God. So that output for math in Nigeria is very unnecessary and honestly a bit negative. I have to be honest.
Yeah, because I feel like I, at least I can attest to that. I noticed, I think I had to go and buy year one textbooks at some point because I really wanted to know what the pressure. Because
All about.
then too, yeah, because even then too, I was really, I think I had done like 2 years and I'd worked with one particular teacher who wasn't really putting so much pressure as such. Our own was, oh, can they do they know the lines, especially with writing? It's like, do they know the lines? And if they know the lines, can they use it to form the numbers? That was all for her. She wasn't really then that I had to work with somebody else who was now on my neck to ensure that 2 to 3 years were writing 1 to 100. I'm like, they don't even know they can't even tell you numbers between 1 and 10. And is it
No,
relevant? Is it even relevant
no,
in
yeah.
the what's it called? In the scheme of things for them? Do they really need this information now? I felt like there were a lot of things that the children could have learned in that period, as opposed to those things that we were really, really pushing for. There's so many deep learning that could have gone on there, even within numbers to 10.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's where it's different here because there is no, they do want the children to progress. We have targets, we do use the EYFS curriculum. But while using the EYFS curriculum, we use the three I's. I don't know if you, in the moment curriculum, if
Yes.
you about it. Yeah. So it's what they're interested in, which I really struggled with because I'm like, how are they going to achieve any flipping thing if I'm just going with what they're interested in. What if the child's interest is streamlined into just one thing?
One thing, yeah.
How am I going to do it? But over time, I've been able to see that they're actually interested in quite a lot. That was just me underestimating the children because their interests are very,
Very,
very
very,
wide. You
very
know,
broad.
they have so much interest. It's just everywhere because they are children and they are very inquisitive. So there is always that opportunity for you to infuse that learning into what
Into it.
if this is set up, maybe a continuous revision setup or whatever tertiary they've seen. They are always interacting with it and they will ask you questions that you don't even expect.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will ask you about numbers because they are seeing numbers on telephones, they are seeing numbers on the clock, they're seeing there was this child that was always interested in learning about the clock. It was like, oh, what time is it now? Oh, what time is it now? So one day I just had to carry him. Like you say, that's the clock. That's a long hand. That's a short hand. That's what it says. That's what it was always so interested in it. And you never think that a preschooler would be interested in learning how to tell time. Even though it's
Mm.
never to say, oh, I want to learn how to tell time, but that was what his interest was. What time is it now? What does the clock say? You know? So they have like the ample opportunity to play and learn. That is like really play based. What we do in Nigeria is not play based. I know you've been on this forever.
I know.
It is not play based. They have play times, they have times to, oh no, no, that's not play. They're not playing. These children here are literally playing from the moment they step into the room, they are
Mm.
playing. It's now up to the practitioners to now, make the environment enabling for them to
For
be able to
them.
have few targets that they have, because obviously they have milestones. They have things we need to look out for to make sure that they're growing, they're achieving, within their age group. Again, this is the WIFS curriculum, and the government has like things that you must achieve as a person. So we have that, but it's more of a guideline and not target
Yeah.
per se. Oh, they should be able to do this thing, but if they are not able to do it, just they will do it in the next room. But give them the opportunity to be able to do it. And that's basically it, just a lot of things that they enjoy. We're doing a lot of, sensory play, we're doing a lot of messy play, we're doing a
That's
lot of
my jam.
painting, we're outside, we're running around, we're screaming, we're playing hide and seek, we're fusing numbers into what they're doing. Then the environment, and they're learning about the environment, or what's in the sky, you're expanding their vocabulary with whatever you're saying. They're seeing plants around, oh, that's a puppy, that's a pony, that's a what, that's a that. They're learning that way. You've not sat them down to say, oh, so today we're learning about flowers.
Mm.
It's and they're learning about it. So while this child is learning about the understanding the world aspect of BYFS, the other child is building on their maths at the same time. The other child is building on their literacy, and they're in the same environment, like literally in the same environment.
Environment.
So the output there is that they are a lot more holistically built because they're learning at their own pace
Peace.
and they're learning at their own interest. Eventually, they still learn everything they need to learn because again, they're very inquisitive. Except of course,
Mm.
certain
Mm.
neurodiversity needs
See
that you have to
this.
now consider.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they will get it. And that helps them to enjoy learning because there is no structure per se to it.
Proceed to it.
With Nigeria, there is that structure. And I think that structure sort of, again, the environment there doesn't, because they've grown up there, they are tough. The children are tough at
Yeah.
home. But then that structure sort of still streamlines them because they're children and they have the
It
innate need
limits
for
them. Yeah.
yeah, they do want to play, but having to like sit down there for gosh, I used to think all the things I was doing back then was like, I enjoyed it and back then it was okay, but reflecting on it, I'm like, oh my god, those students sat for too long. They
But,
sat for too long. Oh my
you
goodness.
know, I
I
remember
did learn
when
outdoor play back home. I did a lot of outdoor learning, but I'm still like, they sat down for too long. Why?
that outdoor learning was your own thing. It wasn't for them really because they were sitting, but you were just
Yeah.
outside. But they were sitting down, like always sitting. And I remember, who was I telling that children are not supposed to sit for long? And I remember during our observation period, then you would have a child just stand up. Then I was taking toddler class. You'd have a child just stand up, and then you can see the nanny rushing to go
The
and pull the child to
assistant
come and
trying
sit.
to like get them
I'm
to
like,
sit.
leave the child alone. There's something for the child to go and explore with in the classroom. Even in my
Yeah.
recent school, right? There was a day a child too was, like just got up and was going, and I'm like, leave the child alone. Are the doors closed? Yes. Is everywhere safe? Yes. Are the toilet doors closed? Yes. There's something in every corner of the class. That's why we put all these toys and all the resources there for them to explore with. The
Yeah.
child doesn't necessarily have to do what I'm trying to do. I think what we call structure here, I would say, is us just trying to control the narrative for the children. And in a way,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's limited because based on what you've said now, right? Because I remember I was talking to a mutual friend, Daima. I don't know if you remember her, and she was telling me about her son and the emergent curriculum. We're talking about the emergent curriculum, and she was saying how there are certain things that her son showed interest in that if she was going to teach him the way she would have, as in like the Nigerian way, she doesn't think that she would have even exposed him to those things.
Yeah.
So in a way, she felt like she would have limited his learning as opposed to just following his interests. And see, like you said, they're inquisitive, so their interest will always, what you're not
It
even
will
thinking,
eventually cover every aspect you needed to cover,
and
honestly.
even more.
Can say one of the things that from the training that I attended last week was that I got called out upon was language. So I said, "Oh, so there's this child that I really like in my room, and she sort of says, a lot of gibberish because she's non-verbal." And I was called out upon that. If you don't mind, I'll share that training with you. You'll find it very, very
Uh,
informative.
it's like,
And the lady said she's a professor. Is she a professor? Yeah, I think she's a professor. And she did say, was the child really saying gibberish? Why have you described it that way? That is a child's method of communication. It is not rubbish to that child. You think it is rubbish, but it is not rubbish to them. Have you tried to, understand what they're saying? So eventually I found out, oh, the child had some form of echolalia, and then she had other forms of, I'm like, oh my God. So I had to introspect and think, yeah, the way you actually, your language determines what you think about
what you
what is
think.
going on with that child. Yeah. So sometimes when I see children do certain things, some children definitely throw tantrums.
Oh, no, they
Absolutely.
do. They do.
But some don't. Some is just like most times it's just a communication. And I'm like, oh, I used to struggle with that too. When the child's like, and they're like, oh, would you like a cuddle? I'm like, why are you cuddling this child? For
Oh,
what? So
I
they
do
have,
give cuddles. I do. But I'll tell
oh,
if you're
I
over.
struggled with that, at
Oh,
the start.
I learned that.
I also think there's need for sensitizing the parents and helping them learn. Because
Yeah.
again, if the parent comes to you for certain things for their child, they have their own expectations. And if they feel like they are not meeting it, they might move the children out or the child out of your setting, which
Mm.
you're missing out on. So I believe the parents need to be sensitized. And
Yeah,
Nigerian parents are very set in their ways. They're very set in their
they
ways.
are.
Yeah. Except they've come to a place like this where it is what it is,
Mm.
then they have to. Otherwise, if it's back home when they can fling their money and say, I pay you, pay you. It's going to be very hard, but it's so necessary to get the parents on board because you cannot really achieve anything with your children if the parents are not on board.
Mm-hmm. True.
It has to be like that. Home, nursery, or school partnership has to be really
Yeah.
strong. It has to be on the same line. So
Mm.
definitely would love to do that. And then just make the environment enabling. And I think again, looking back on a lot of things that I've done in the past, and the environments were okay, they were fine. We had loads of resources, but they were not as enabling as they should have been. The children never really had access to a lot of those resources. They were just like
Right.
kept for when the practitioner needed it, and we bring it out. So they could never really explore
Sure.
as much as they also have explored and
Right.
grow in their own knowledge and grow in their own, capacity. And I don't know, also continuous provision, just providing for them. And again, it's part of an enabling environment. Just
Mm-hmm.
letting the children find out what it is that they are learning by themselves and you supporting them through it, facilitating instead of being like the instructor. Obviously, there's going to
Right.
be, you need to be the instructor, but not in early years.
Not in early years. Yeah.
Not in, absolutely not in early years. And also for the practitioners, like I said, there's a lot of knowledge gap that needs, updating, that needs to be filled. The practitioners need to know a lot more about what it means to be a child, what it means to be whatever. Over here, which is where it's so funny. So over here, you have to like most of them do apprenticeships to
Okay.
get there. So they are learning on the job. So it's
Right.
usually 12 to 18, a lot of time 18 months before they
Right.
get it. Back home is like, do you have a BSc? You studied engineering, computer science, fine, but do you have a BSc? Come and teach.
Mm.
There's that background knowledge most of the time is not even there. So there
Yeah.
is a lot to learn
Right. Mm.
for the practitioners. So that is something that definitely, I know we did a lot of trainings in MH, and honestly, I appreciated it so much, and I still appreciate it because it helped me grow a lot. But those trainings were not enough as it is. Knowing what I know
Or we're
now,
not adequate. Yeah.
yeah, okay, they were not just adequate, and they did not really, as such, just you know, because this is going on public. I don't want to like say something that's going to make somebody come me and say,
No, but I
ah,
think
that's
most
fine.
of our trainings in schools, not even just there, most of the trainings, most of what we focus on, they do not really, especially for early childhood education, they don't really
No, honestly, I just think that MH, like when it comes to training, MH has it like hands
oh
down.
yeah.
You know about now. When I
I
was there,
I don't know too.
yeah, it was like they did a lot for the practitioners. But
Mm.
again, there's still that knowledge gap because like, knowing what I know now, if I knew what I know now back then, my practice would have been a whole lot better.
A whole lot
I know we
better.
do of traveling and all that. I did travel at some point. But honestly, that time, that frame of time was too short to learn anything.
Mm.
It learn anything. It was just like, yeah, observing certain practices, but you cannot really pick out those best practices by observing for 1 or 2 weeks. You cannot. It's
Yeah.
not possible. It's just going to be over time of that exposure to those practices and just updating our knowledge. Not
Mm.
having to
True. I
repeat
remember
the same thing.
walking about.
Obviously, I think one of the things that the Nigerian curriculum focuses on is boundaries. And while boundaries is very necessary, the children need to learn boundaries. So
Yeah.
they need to learn the routine. That at this point, you need to sit for this amount of time, this period of time. And that's why, when like you said, during observation and children's stroll, like, you're like getting really agitated because they're so focused on the children should know how to sit at that point in time. But again, those children are always at different stages of their learning, which is something that was never really considered. I think they think that children are here in the same classroom, they're probably in reception, they all should be at the same level of learning, except their
Mm.
SEN, which isn't the same thing. It's not always the case. Some children might have learned to sit there, some children might not have learned to sit, even though they are very good with literacy. They might have sensory issues that causes them to always need to move
To move.
that we probably haven't considered, you know.
Mhm.
So obviously there's that need for boundaries. So what we do here is we do try to get them to sit. Right. It's circle time, come and sit down. Some children don't sit, they stroll. Sometimes you let them stroll. Sometimes they're like, come and sit. Come back and sit. If you've tried once, twice, let them stroll. That is it. You just let them go. But obviously, you always have to like keep trying to get them to participate in the group time activity because again, that's like part of their PSCD,
Yeah.
you know, that they need to be able to communicate, sit in a circle, talk about whatever with their friends and listen to grown-ups and whatnot. But the focus on boundaries back home is just a lot more than it should be. But they
Mm.
are children after all. And we
Yeah.
don't treat them as children. They need to be flying about. For starters, our rooms were like, not the children were there, so many children. And you know which school I'm talking about right now. There were too
Yeah.
many kids in the room. For the love of God, there were too many children in the room.
And the classroom, the
Yeah.
tables. So I always have this issue whenever I step into a classroom and I see lots of tables in early years. I get so, how I put it, my brain just does. We shouldn't have so many tables in an early years classroom. How they need to move.
Yeah.
There's no space to move. Because even as an adult, right, when you mentioned sensory issues, actually, if I dial back to my childhood, I actually realized I had a lot of that. I always needed to move. Till date, I can't sit still for too long. If I've done 1 hour of sitting down, I'm done in my head. As in, I've zoned out of any other thing that you want to say. something has to bring
Mhm.
me back. So I literally have to like maybe steam or just, move my body just to bring myself back. So for some children, that's even their way of regulating themselves so that they can listen to what you're saying.
Yeah,
But you are
yeah,
looking at it
absolutely.
as, oh, you moving your body. I think we just want children to be adults so bad that we forget that they are going to be adults, but they have to be children first before they become adults. Yeah, and I get the place.
Also,
Yeah.
I just think there's a lot of knowledge gap with what
Okay.
we know about. There's a lot of
Mm,
knowledge gap. We feel like we know a lot about what it means to be a child, but we really do not know. And when we're doing CPDs, we're doing CPDs on things that I don't know. I really would say the CPDs were good, but they were not as effective. We're just doing CPDs for the sake of doing CPD, you know. So if you do CPD and there's really nothing to apply, then what are you doing it for? Because
mm.
there are so many things to consider. You consider the children's schemas. I knew about schema back home. I never really used it.
So I did a
I
lot.
never really, yeah. So there are so many things that you have to consider. You have to look at the children and think about what is going on with them. Why do they do what they're doing? It's not that this child is just unruly. Why is this child getting up at every point in time? What are they going to do when they get up? Again, it's very difficult because you have 25 children and it's just you. So having to observe every child like that is a lot of mental stress, coupled with the fact that you need them to write up to 1 million in like 2 weeks' time and like 20 books before their parent picks them up at home time. It's a lot on the teacher.
Mm.
So there's that knowledge. We don't really know. What we know is good enough, it's on the surface and it's okay, but
What's
we
not
need to go a
okay?
lot deeper. And I'm sorry, so all those conferences that I have attended when I was there did nothing for me. Absolutely nothing. I know the conferences. They did nothing for me. They were not, no, they did nothing. They are just things that you need to understand for you to really know what children are doing. There's a
Mm.
child that was in my preschool room that used to like tip things out and then sit inside the tub, you know. She just sits inside the tub. And sometimes it's just like when she's struggling with it, we just tip the thing out and give her the tub. But yeah, sit inside. And she's happy to sit there. And that was just her own schema. That was her
Enveloping
self-regulation. That
schema.
she was just sitting there and watch. And then after sitting there for a while, she could just get out, run around, play, scream, do whatever, and go back and sit in there. And when it's time to, because usually this is out in the garden now, when it's time to go back in the room, you would have to fight her. I'm not joking. I don't know if you realize, but small children are so strong. I don't know why they are so
Oh, they
strong.
very
Oh, they are so strong.
when they
You
stretch
cannot
their hands and
tell.
their legs.
Oh, you know what she does? Is she folds. I don't know if you've ever tried to pick up a child when they're
Yeah.
you cannot. I don't know. I don't know how strong they are, but you cannot pick the child up when they're folded. And it's like so hard to just get her in. But understanding that part of sometimes just like, okay, take this bucket and go inside. And then she goes in with the bucket. But I bet if something like that happens back home, a practitioner will probably shout at the child because one is extra work on that practitioner. Stop pouring stuff out that I have to pick. There's no one else to help me. And
Mm.
then practitioner probably just doesn't understand why the child is doing that.
Doing that. And there's nobody
Yeah.
telling or guiding the practitioner to know.
To know, oh, this is what it could be. This is what it could be. So there's that knowledge gap that
Mm.
really, the practitioners back home to miss out on a lot of things. And it's a lot of things that are important to the children,
This is
important for their well-being, important for their holistic growth. So again, the environment makes them tough, and these things probably don't look like an issue right then it might be an issue later on in life for them. But those things are so important that if it gets identified and if they're helped through it at that point, then it's better for them when they're grown up.
mm.
And there's that gap there. So over here, there's that knowledge of, even when you don't know, you're asking and you're seeing people do stuff, and except you don't want to ask questions. And I like to ask questions. I'm always asking stuff. So if you're asking questions and you're attending, CPD programs, that you're really learning about these things. And I attended one last Monday, and it was like I haven't really looked into it, but there was
Yeah.
something that was called like an ABC. It was just like an assessment to know what sensory issue the child might have. I don't know what the ABC stands for. Because again, it was last week and I haven't looked into it again. I was really interested to see that. Oh, so when a child is probably repeating a particular kind of behavior,
Yeah.
instead of coming to a conclusion of what you think you know about that behavior, you need to sit back, look at the child, and use the ABC chart. And
I think
then
I
that
know
should
that
help.
ABC chart. My one of my bosses had that. Um, I think she shared it with us. I should have one. Think I do. Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
do. Yeah, I do.
I just came across it and I haven't looked into it after.
Yeah, you know, she
But I
lives
just
in
found
the
it really
UK, so
interesting.
she was always bringing all those
Yeah.
things.
It's just really interesting to see that, yeah, a child might be doing a particular thing and it's just a sensory issue you've never, ever considered before. You know, I know they're talking about a particular child that would always probably fall down whenever it goes outside or whenever whatever screen comes on. And when they use the ABC chart for the child, they found out that the child was reacting to light, to sudden bright light,
Oh
which
wow,
leads to a medical issue at the end of the day. And the child had to start, wearing special
glasses.
glasses and all that, and the child stopped that behavior. But back home, probably like, why are you always falling down? What is wrong with you? Go and sit down there.
Mm, right.
Knowledge gap, stress, and all that, just comes up to a lot. The children,
Yeah,
they're doing
can
the very
that's
best
the
they can.
stress part too.
Yeah.
I actually felt that stress at some point, but I just knew that I needed to do I should, what I needed to do. At least I've had one or two children who there's this particular boy, he can't sit still. So he would always swing his legs and all that. So whenever we have circle time, I always just give him a chair. Like, you know what? Just sit on the chair so you can kick and, do whatever you want to do. I had to get him a stress ball
Yeah.
to help. And then my was farm corner. I put a lot of what's it called? Soft toys there. Funny enough, if I think back now to last year, there was this very brilliant boy, extremely Bella. This boy was already doing 1 to 500. Like he had left his pairs behind. But guess what he loved doing the most? He would always go to the camp corner, carry the biggest teddy bear, and just use it to cover himself, and just be there for a while.
Was
Not
enveloping.
that was all. Like, and once he's
Yeah.
done, he will just come back again. So a lot of times he would just pretend he was upset and just go by himself to go and sit down there and just cover himself with the teddy, that big teddy bear, that particular big teddy bear. He would use it to cover himself and stay there for a while. And then when he's okay, we'll come and just. So when you just mentioned the sensory needs now, I'm just thinking back to the few times that I've had even children chewing some toys. Sometimes I don't even, I stop getting upset about it. I actually just stopped.
They
It's
don't
not,
swallow it, generally
no, no,
speaking.
no, I'm not even
Yeah,
saying
that's not
like
like,
tiny toys. Like you just see maybe this magnetile now, the child just wants to just chew, and I'm like, what's, but then I'm like, okay, you're trying to explore, but it's not for
it's like,
chewing.
yeah, it's dirty. You shouldn't put it in your mouth, but
Yeah, you should have, but I
and
know
they're
you're,
like, it's dirty. Take it out. And they look at you like, what are you talking about? And I walk around, I'm like, bye. As long as you don't
no,
swallow it, if it's not a
yeah,
safeguarding risk, you're fine.
yeah,
Go.
you're fine. Yeah, I'm just like, you're just trying to figure out if it's edible, if it's, you're a child. Okay, but don't put it in your mouth. It's not for
You're
eating.
tasting it. Toddlers are they're just very, oh my God. They eat paint. They eat, preschoolers don't eat
Sand,
paint. Toddlers eat paint. Paint.
sand.
I'm like, why? Why are you people
Yeah, that's why.
touching
So
it?
for
Do
a
it
very long, yeah, for a very long time, I stopped putting real paint. I stopped using real paint for sensory play. So I started mixing food coloring. So
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes I'll
that's
mix food coloring and
it's
flour,
safe.
food coloring and maybe what's this corn flour, food coloring, and that's what I started doing because I'm like, you will not put me in trouble. I don't want to get
Yeah.
arrested. Just- So anything that even I stopped using paint for my water play, it had to be food coloring because they would drink. They've not. They would drink the full water.
I know. Like I just look at them like, do that. It's gonna make you poorly. Like your tummy is going to be poorly. Stop it.
But that's
But
they are
before you know
curious.
it, they do, oh my God. Yeah, and that's part of their learning. It's just the curiosity of what does it take? Oh, that thing looks like chocolate. Is it actually chocolate?
Chocolate.
Let me try. Let me taste.
Now you
I'm
so
not
now you
sure if it's chocolate or not. Let me try again. And before you know, they've eaten like a whole ball of Play-Doh. Like, out of your
so,
mouth, please.
so you see what you just said now? That is all I've been advocating for. In the mind of through the mind of a child. It makes it easy for you not to react when they do certain things because now you get it. Now you get that, oh, they can't talk. So this is the only way they can explore. They're using their five senses. That's why it's sensory
Yeah,
play.
they actually do
Five
use
senses.
all their senses, honestly.
That's the only thing. They're making that noise because, oh, this thing, I just hit this thing now. Oh, it sounds nice. Oh, it made a sound. Let me do it again and again and again. Makes sense, makes sense. Oh, I just squeeze this thing. Oh, I can pull this thing apart. Oh, it actually they pull up. Let me put it back. You know, once you start seeing things from their mind through their eyes, it makes it easier for you to be more patient and just like, what? All I need to do is just keep you safe, keep you out of the hospital and keep myself out
Yeah,
of
and
jail.
yeah, make provisions for them. So obviously, if they are ripping up important documents, then it's a problem.
Oh,
If a
that's a
child
problem.
rip up things just like you want to rip things off, all right, come, I'm going to give you an entire stack of magazines. Start ripping it.
Huh,
Rip
exactly.
away.
Now
Yeah,
that
and
is
then
you.
always guide them and let them know. Oh, if you see this type of paper or something that looks like this, bring it to me.
Yeah,
But you see
they'll
that,
touch.
you're fine. Keep ripping. Even writing on the wall, we try to get them, they still do. And they're very intelligent. They know they ought not to write on the wall, but they want to write on that wall. So when they say, like, we don't write on the wall, they run away. And go look for they have some boards on the wall outside and they write
Yeah.
on it. But otherwise, they're like writing on the wall. And that's just how they are developing, fine motor skills. They're developing early writing
Mm.
that way, even though we don't want them to write on the wall. Well, I think the kind of place we use that the nursery I work is the one where you can clean. So
Mm.
as much as you're trying to get them to write on the wall, we can always wipe it off. But
Yeah.
then there's provision to actually write on the wall outside because they are stuck to the wall outside. And
Yeah.
that's just an enabling environment for them to do whatever it is that
Whatever they
is
want to
then.
do.
Yeah.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you so much for this. You've literally answered because I was going to ask you for you to I was going to ask for you to share some teaching practices and you've actually answered that question. So let me ask you this last one. If you were given a chance to head an early years school over here, what are the things that you'd likely change?
Early years, for starters, I think if I can, but which I don't think that would be up to me, I'd definitely try to get a larger room or reduce the number of children in the standard rooms that we use back home.
Mm.
Right. So the room we use here is more of like a Reggio Emilia. You know one thing I've noticed about a lot of curriculums? It's never one curriculum, never.
No, it's
It's a
never.
bit of theory, a bit of AYFS, a bit of Reggio Emilia. It's always a bit of everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the room we use here is pretty large. Like it's like a really long. Say you join three to four MH rooms together, just like an open space
Yeah.
is what we use here. And I think I really enjoy that for the children because they're able to move freely, move really. Granted, there are times when we have like close to 40 children at the setting
Okay.
at the same time, and then it becomes a bit cramped up, and then we try to like get some children out in the garden, take some children to the sensory room. We have a sensory room, I'll definitely do that. Sensory room, the IT area. I think one of the things, probably just make the room bigger or reduce the number of children. Again, it's not up to me because it's a business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You've got to make your overhead cost and all that. There's a lot of cost that goes
Mm.
into making that. Yeah, I think I'll do that. And also the curriculum, it's Nigeria. It's going to be very, very hard to do that. But
Mm.
the targets have to be child friendly. At the end of the day, they do need to be child friendly. There's no need for a child to be writing up to 100 if they can. If they're exposed to that, if they've picked up that skill by themselves, then that's fine. We will support them. But there's no need to teach them to do that. They don't need that skill. They will pick up that skill whenever. Like
Yeah.
growing, they're going to secondary school. They will pick it up. They need it then. There's no need picking up that skill now and then
Mm.
leaving it, their pocket till whenever they need it. There's no need. So as much as possible, I would advocate for the curriculum to be child friendly. Again, Nigeria.
I know.
But eventually, I started to see that once you've known these children, And
Mm.
you know that, okay, for this child, it is maybe this sort of activity or this, you know, happening triggers this. And this is why the child is behaving that way. You know, or a child is just doing something like this child is never like this. Come here. What's going on? What's
Yeah.
wrong? It's communication,
Mm.
which again, I've never thought about that. I never thought about it back home. Child,
Mm.
why are you making noise? Is what I'll probably think. Why are you making noise? I don't think I give children cuddles.
Well, you were in
I don't
reception.
here and now. It's just to play. And it seems like a very foreign concept, even though, you know,
Like, I can't
people
believe you're even the one saying this. Like,
no, honestly, you know, back home in theory, we know. So, like, oh, they have playtime for 30 minutes. What do you mean, 30 minutes? In an 8 hour, 10-hour school day, they need to be playing for like 9 hours, 5 minutes. Honestly. And the remaining time, they're probably sat down eating their lunch. And that is it. And when they are playing, that is when they're actually learning. Even if the child doesn't say anything to you that day, even if they have not asked you any question,
they're absorbing.
they learn so much that they will go home and tell their parents. And then when the parents come to you and say, "Oh, we said this," I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even know. I had no idea. I don't." You know, they're just picking up things by themselves. You know, there's
Mm.
this child that just come from baby room, and he's just learning about colors. And what he's doing is, he's not even asking anybody what colors the colors are. He's just naming the colors himself. So he knows certain names of colors. He knows green. He knows red. He knows yellow. And then he picks a certain color and names it, and that's where he is now. So if I show him something red, I say, "Oh, what color is this?" He goes, "Green."
Oh,
Always green too. I'm like, okay, yeah, green, but sometimes red. And then it goes green. I'm like, oh, this is actually very interesting because he's learning and he has decided how he wants to learn for now.
learn. Yeah.
Eventually, he will switch it and know that that color is called red. But I'm not under any pressure to
Yeah, but
prove
at
to
least
my.
he knows that green is a color.
He knows green is a color.
The
He knows
color.
red is a
And that's
color. Yes,
learning.
he's just not able to match the right colors yet.
Yeah.
But you know that when I see something, that is the color and I can
Color.
name it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so I wish we got it right, you know, back home, but
We
it is
can
what it
gradually, if one or two people are getting it right. Sure.
yeah, yeah, I know, but I think if I've worked in so-called very good, outstanding schools back home, and there's just like that level of
Nigerianness.
gap. Yeah. I just wonder like when are we going to get it right?
Yeah.
Like at what point are we going to get it right? You know.
True.
Again, the children are flourishing, even with the way the system is. They're flourishing, they go to other countries and they really excel.
But not
Honestly,
all
they do
though.
excel.
But not all though.
Yeah, yeah, not all. Obviously, they excel in the academic areas, but there's that prime areas that they still struggle with, which is what should have been dealt with from the
Mm-hmm.
get-go before you even think about adding on the academic story. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, there are both advantages
Thank
and
you.
disadvantages.
Mm. Thank you so much for this. It's been enlightening. I really learned a lot. Like, yeah, it affirmed a lot
Yeah,
of things. It affirmed a lot of things that I had already known, but then I also learned some more. And really, I know that a lot of other educators as well will learn from this. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to call you again. We'll invite you again